guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a project that I'm going to be doing next year. It is the Booktuber Recommends jar. I originally got this idea from Krista over at Books and Jams. She did this last year and I absolutely love the idea of it. So I thought I would do it on my channel for 2018. So I'm going to explain what it is and then what's in the jar so that you know all about the plans that I've got for next year. So basically I asked 12 booktubers who I've spoken to a lot during 2017, who I've got to know a lot better. I've followed a lot of their channel, we've had chats and we've done buddy reads and things like that. Booktubers that I know will definitely have a bit of an idea of my taste, but also that I like regularly chat to and stuff, and I asked them to recommend a book to me, and each of them have, and what I've done is I have written them all down and put them in a jar, and then every month during 2018 I will draw out one of these books to read. Some of them I own, some of them I will be getting from the library, and there'll be a couple that I'll have to buy, but I'm just really excited about the idea to kind of widen my reading horizons and read some of my favourite booktubers' favourite books. So they're all in here. This is a mug my husband got as a present recently, the Harry Potter I solemnly swear I'm up to no good, the Marauders map mug, and I've put all of my bits of paper in here, so I'll be drawing one of these out every month so that I can read whatever is on the piece of paper. So I'm going to let you know what's been picked out and what is in the jar at the moment. The first recommendation was from Krista over at Books and Jams. I absolutely love her. She has an absolutely fantastic channel and I love chatting to her. I think we have an awful lot in common and our reading tastes are really similiar too. So she has recommended Peace Like a River by Leif Enger. This is a book that I think she was reading for her Goodreads read-along group, which she does every month. I think they're reading it during December, and she was saying that she was really enjoying it, so that she would definitely recommend it to me. This has a really interesting premise as well. It says, through the voice of 11-year-old Reuben, an asthmatic boy obsessed with cowboy stories, Peace Like a River tells of the Land family's cross-country search for Reuben's outlaw older brother, who has been controversially charged with murder. Sprinkled with playful and warm-hearted nods to biblical tales, classic American novels such as Huckleberry Finn, the adventure stories of Robert Louis Stevenson, and the westerns of Zane Grey, Peace Like a River brilliantly incorporates the best elements of all these genres and ultimately earns its own prominent and enduring place on the shelf among them. And I think it's Katie from Life Between Words really loves this book as well, so I am really looking forward to picking up next year. Next up is a recommendation from Lisa over at Books and Smiles, and again I absolutely love Lisa. I feel like I've really got to know her this year. We've done a buddy read together and we're planning another one in January, and I just love her channel. I trust all of her recommendations, so she just had to be incorporated on this list, and she has recommended a book called Yellow Crocus by Layla Ibrahim. And I think she read this year, I believe, and really raved about it. I remember her wrapping it up on her channel. And the description for this sounds absolutely fantastic. So it says, moments after Elizabeth is born, she's taken from her mother and handed over to an enslaved wet nurse, Mattie, a young mother separated from her own infant son in order to care for her tiny charge. Thus begins an intense relationship that will shape both of their lives for decades to come. Though Elizabeth leads a life of privilege, she finds nothing but loneliness in the company of her overwhelmed mother and her distant slave-owning father. As she grows older, Mattie becomes more like family to Elizabeth than her own kin, and the girls' visits to the slaves' quarters and their lively and loving community bring them closer together than ever. But can two women in such disparate circumstances form a bond like theirs without consequence? This deeply moving tale of unlikely love traces the journey of these very different women as each searches for freedom and dignity. That sounds absolutely fascinating, so I can't wait to pick that up too. The next recommendation is from Russell at Ink and Paper blog, and I think I started following his channel sort of about 6 months ago or something like that, and I absolutely love him. He always gives great recommendations, and I'm always adding loads of stuff to my wish list based on his recommendations. So he recommended reading Excellent Women by Barbara Pym. I'd never heard of this before, but the premise sounds pretty interesting. So it says, Mildred Lathbury is one of those excellent women who's often taken for granted. She is a godsend, capable of dealing with most of the stock situations of life. Birth, marriage, death, the successful jumble sales, the garden fate sport by bad weather. As such, she often gets herself embroiled in other people's lives, especially those of her glamorous new neighbours, the Napiers, whose marriage seems to be on the rocks. One cannot take sides in these matters, though it is tricky, especially as Mildred, teetering on the edge of spinsterhood, has a soft spot for the dashing young Rockingham Napier. This is Barbara Pym's world at its funniest and most touching. So that sounds like it's going to be kind of funny, but light-hearted, but also quite heartwarming as well, and I'm really looking forward to reading that one. Next up is a recommendation from April from Getting Hugger With It. Again, I've done a buddy read with her this year, and I really, really love her channel. She reads a lot of historical fiction, but she does these hauls where she does sort of like thriller hauls and things like that, and puts it into categories, and yeah, I just love watching those videos. So she recommended reading Lily and the Octopus, and this is by Stephen Rowley. I hauled this a few months ago now, and it was basically on her recommendation, and this is about a man and his dog, and his dog, I believe, develops a brain tumour, and it's about him and his dog and their relationship, and about kind of what this dog is going through and stuff. And I know this is going to be a real tearjerker, but yeah, I cannot wait to read it. Next is a recommendation from Dave over at Wild Reads. I think he's had his channel now for about 6 months, and he's doing so well with it. Yeah, he does these great book hauls, these epic book hauls, and he's always buying books from charity shops, which is very close to my own heart. And he has some really good things to say about books, and he recommended reading The Keeper of Lost Things, and this is by Ruth Hogan. Again, I hauled this a few months ago, but I haven't got around to reading it yet, and he had really good things to say about it when he read it earlier this year. And this says on the back, meet the Keeper of Lost Things. Anthony Perdue has spent half his life collecting lost objects, trying to atone for a promise broken many years before. Realising he's running out of time, he leaves his house and all its lost treasures to his assistant Laura, the one person he can trust to reunite the thousands of objects with their rightful owners. But the final wishes of the Keeper of Lost Things have unforeseen repercussions which trigger a most serendipitous series of encounters. I think that sounds really, really charming. I quite like the idea of lost objects and reuniting them with their owners, and I think probably we're going to meet some real characters in this book. So yeah, there's that one. Next up is a recommendation from Amanda at Cook Read Create. I really, really love her channel. She's an Australian booktuber, and she does these videos where she does nail art based on the covers of books that she's recently read, and it is absolutely fascinating to watch. She's so creative, and I really wish I could do something like that. But yeah, nowhere near creative enough. But she is absolutely amazing, and what's great about her channel is that she recommends lots of Australian YA books as well as adult books too, and she has her own blog, I believe, so she's sort of well up to date with the industry. And she recommended a book called These Violent Delights, and this is by Victoria Namkung, I think that's how you say that. I think this was released very recently in November, so I can get it in hardcover, and it's an absolutely beautiful hardcover, as you can see from the image I've got on the screen. And the description for this sounds great. So it says that Windermere School for Girls, one of America's elite private schools, Dr. Gregory Copeland is the beloved chair of the English department. A married father with a penchant for romantic poetry and impressionable teenage girls, he operates in plain sight for years, until one of his former students goes public with allegations of inappropriate conduct. With the help of an investigative journalist and 2 additional Windermere alumni who had relationships with Copeland as students, the unlikely quartet unites to take him down. Set in modern-day Los Angeles, These Violent Delights is a literary exploration of the unyielding pressures and vulnerabilities that so many women and girls experience, and analyses the ways in which our institutions and families fail to protect or defend us. A suspenseful and nuanced story told from multiple points of view, the novel examines themes of sexuality, trauma, revenge, and the American myth of liberty and justice for all. So that sounds absolutely fascinating. I really hate, and you know this already, books that have got inappropriate relationships between teachers and students in them for obvious reasons, but this is obviously going to be a book that looks at the why that's wrong basically, and the kind of the ins and outs of that kind of thing. So that sounds like it's going to be something that I'll find really interesting. Next up is a recommendation from Harriet over at Harriet Rosie, and she reads a really wide variety of books, so I was interested to see what she would pick out, and she has picked out The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. I haven't read anything by Karen Slaughter before, so I'm really excited about picking this one up, and this is her newest release. And I know it's a psychological thriller, so I don't really want to read the premise of this one. I just want to go into it a little bit blind. I've got a couple of other Karen Slaughters on my shelf, so perhaps when I have read this one and I like it, that'll be sort of like my impetus to pick up the next one. So there we go. Next up is a recommendation from Sarah over at Sarah's Nightstand, and I think probably out of all of these channels I discovered her channel most recently because Lisa over at Bricks and Smiles did a Booktubers You Should Follow video, and Sarah was obviously one of the ones that she recommended, and I really love her channel. She does some really interesting videos and I just really like watching her. She's really engaging and she seems like she's got very similar taste to me. And it's, yeah, fascinating listening to some of the things that she says about her life and things like that. So she recommended what she says is one of her favourite books, and that is Water for Elephants, and this is by Sarah Gruen. I recently hauled this, I think last month or the month before, something like that, and this is obviously the film tie-in edition, but it's in pretty good nick. So I think this centres around a circus, and obviously we've got a relationship going on, and I think it's about an elephant keeper and then somebody comes to help him or something like that, and it's set in Depression era America. So yeah, if she says this is one of her favourite books, then that really excites me. Next up is a recommendation from Katie from Life Between Words. I absolutely adore Katie. She's always got good recommendations. For example, recently she did a haul on her channel and she hauled lots of books about Hollywood starlets, and it was just fascinating listening to her talk about some of what she'd already read and why she'd picked these things up, and it really made me want to pick up some of these not autobiographies, I think they were biographies that she'd bought too. So she recommended this chunker, The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. She did say if you don't want a really chunky book, then I'll recommend something else to you, but I already had this on my shelf and it's been sitting there for quite some time now, and just because it is really long doesn't mean that I shouldn't pick it up and give it a go. Let's just see how long this is. Okay, so it looks like it's about just over 1,000 pages, and I believe this is about the building of a cathedral, and I've heard people talk about this and say that that premise doesn't sound that interesting, but the way Ken Follett builds his characters and his world will really fascinate you. So yeah, we'll give that one a go at some point. Next up we've got a recommendation from Robin over at Driftless Reader. And I'm really excited to be doing a buddy read with her in January and getting to know her a bit better. She reads a lot of historical fiction on her channel, and she has a buddy reads group that reads historical fiction every month, which is great. And she has recommended A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Tolls. And this sounds really interesting as well. So the premise says, on the 21st of June 1922, Count Alexander Rostov, recipient of the Order of St. Andrew, member of the Jockey Club, master of the hunt, is escorted out of the Kremlin, across Red Square and through the elegant revolving doors of the Hotel Metropole. Deemed an unrepentant aristocrat by a Bolshevik tribunal, the Count has been sentenced to house arrest indefinitely. But instead of his usual suite, he must now live in an attic room while Russia undergoes decades of tumultuous upheaval. Can a life without luxury be the richest of all? And I haven't really read an awful lot around Russia and the Soviet Union. So I think this will be a really, really interesting one from that point of view, and I'm interested to see how the story goes with a guy sort of shut up in that attic room. Is he going to be observing the world around him? Is it going to be about how he copes? I don't really know, but it sounds really interesting. Next up is a recommendation from Mel from Mel's Bookland Adventures. I really, really love Mel. She always inspires me to go to the library, which I'm sure she'll be pretty pleased with. And she's the kind of reason why I wanted to read more off of my shelf in 2018 and visit the library a bit more. Just because I think I love going to the library and I should really do that a bit more often and support my libraries. But she's always going to the library and hauling things and talking about things that she's read, and I love listening to her talk about books. She's got some really lovely opinions, but also she talks about books in a really engaging way. So she recommended reading The Crimson Petal and the White by Michelle Faber, and again this is another chunky one, so this I think is just over 800 pages. And again, I've had this on my shelf for a little while. I'm not really sure what this is about. It says on the back, Sugar, an alluring 19-year-old prostitute in the brothel of the peculiar Mrs. Castaway, yearns for a better life. And when she is visited by William Rackham, the somewhat reluctant heir to Rackham Perfumeries, she begins an ascent through the strata of 1870s London society that offers us intimacy with a host of lovable, maddening and superbly realised characters. Gripping from the first page, this hugely acclaimed novel is an intoxicating and deeply satisfying read. Not only a wonderful story, but the creation of an entire extraordinary world. So that sounds fascinating. It sounds like we're going to get some really, really vivid characters and settings in this one, and a really sort of eccentric but lovable world. I don't really know, that's not really an apt description, but yeah, something along those lines. So yeah, looking forward to that one. And lastly is a recommendation from Kerry Ann over at Woman vs Books. Kerry Ann is just so lovely. She's so lovely to watch, and she seems like a genuinely nice person. And she does these videos on a Sunday where she talks about what she's reading. I think she calls them Sunday snapshots. And they're really interesting to listen to, and then she hauls a really, really lovely variety of books, which is obviously right up my alley. So she recommended Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet by Jamie Ford, and I think I'd heard of this title before, but I didn't really know anything about it, but the premise does sound really interesting. So it says, 1986, the Panama Hotel. The old Seattle landmark has been boarded up for decades, but now the new owner has made a startling discovery in the basement. Personal belongings stowed away by Japanese families sent to internment camps during the Second World War. Among the fascinated crowd gathering outside the hotel stands Henry Lee, and as the owner unfurls a distinctive parasol, he's flooded by memories of his childhood. He wondered if by some miracle, in amongst the boxes of dusty treasures, lies a link to the Okabe family and the girl he lost his heart to so many years ago. That sounds really charming and really endearing, so I can't wait to read that one too. So there we go guys, they are all of the 12 books that have been recommended to me. Like I said, they are in this mug now, and every time I do a TBR video I will be drawing one of them out, and that will be the book that I'll be reading this month. So like I said, I've got a few of them which I showed you today, and then most of them I can get from the library that I don't own, and there are a couple that I'm going to buy. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing this project this year and reading some books both inside and outside my comfort zone, and reading books that are the favourite books of people that I talk to and follow regularly on Booktube. So that's it guys. If you have read any of these books, I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.